uh, so it is also my, mm, deep conflict with what was happening that I really entered into finding out what is education. I was, I remember being tormented with the idea of going to school, all kinds of things that happened in the school. Then later on in the engineering college where I felt that I was just not enjoying, I was not living. I was doing everything for others. And naturally I got interested in understanding what is that, And I was very lucky that in third year end, I was expelled from the college, from the hostel, and so I had to leave alone. So that was the first time I encountered myself, truly. Otherwise I was in the crowd, doing everything that everyone else was doing, never realizing that there is somebody who has different dreams, different things, because you're just flowing in this thing. So that thing really made me wonder what is really happening, Two things came very clear to me. That the people who are studying with me, engineering, was topping and all that, making good marks, getting good work, everything, nobody was really passionate about what they were doing. They were not enjoying what they were doing. This was quite shocking to me. So I took one decision, that I will live my life as per my wish of my soul, that I have to enjoy what I do. So I decided that I will not take up 9 to 5 jobs, nor I will work in a factory and all that kind of thing. I felt freedom is the most important gift that life can give you. And modernity is turning everybody into slaves. This is what is happening. They may be well paid, nevertheless they are a slave. Because they are not responding to their soul. They are responding to the unnatural demands that the society is now putting in. And then I took a drop and started working with children in a school, because I realized that this whole tragedy begins with childhood. So I wanted to revisit childhood. So I took a year off, went to spend time in the school, but never pretending to teach. Well, of course, I was doing a little bit of things because I was in the school. Of course, initially I was a bit serious because I thought that I had to really know what was happening. And well, I went back to engineering, took that degree, only a degree, I have no knowledge of engineering. And but then I decided just not to do anything, and next year I got into NID, National Institute of Design. And but design, NID was a different space altogether. I realized that even in this context, there can be a learning place. Till then I hardly attended classes. Even if I come, I sit in the back bench. This was a time when I always wanted to sit in first, because I was truly interested in exploring what is happening at NID. Of course within certain limits, because I think even though the space has certain freedom, lots of it, it also was still nevertheless in the box of westernization, box of modernity, things like that, So I wanted to truly explore some of those issues like what is truly creativity, what is aesthetic sense, what is beauty, because I found that even in spite of that freedom, that NID is producing people who have very common, very similar aesthetic sense. So somewhere, some conditioning is still taking place. You get me, no? So but it was also fascinating because I found a place where I found everybody was interested in inquiring, learning, doing things. So it was, the institute was open from, you could go from 6 to maybe 10, 12 in the night. Things were open, people were, and almost all of them were involved in discussions, hardly about Bollywood and all that nonsense, but about things that are really fundamental, issues. This is very, very interesting because it's important to state this because I have not come across this kind of an institution nowhere. None of the IITs have this quality. None of the so-called premier institutions have this quality of learning. Because nobody takes attendance in NID. It's not required because everybody would be there. Even if someone is not there, they know that they're not just wasting their time. It would be something to do with, something that is, that they are doing. Uh, you hardly have anybody in the class. They will be in the library, they will be here, they will be there, you know. That is truly a learning space. That is my interest in learning, not because teacher want it, not because I want a degree. There's a clear space. We must explore this because modernity has not understood that there can be spaces like this. Now they're just factories and factories of schooling, nothing else. And people are, I've gone to this institutions, the new institutions of engineering and all that, they're just treated like kids, factory kids. Coat, tie, uniform, everybody has to come on time. If you don't come on time, they're punished by money. You have to pay fee, extra money. I can't believe what are we churning out, And they say they are all good institutions. Parents are happy. You see. I'm also telling you what is the contemporary situation of this new institution that are coming up, just producing clones. Let me go deeper into what is education, what is knowledge, I clearly see my own journey in two phases, or in fact 3 phases. One, when I began to inquire how to teach children. This is what all setup is. It is textbook is the authority. Teacher learns the same textbook and blurts it out, that's it. So it's a textbook authority situation. Everything is fixed, schools are there, textbook is there. Teachers are ready, they know everything in the text. You only have to transfer that information to the child. This is the paradigm of how to teach children. This is what is happening all over the world. Alright? They will find more and more tricks to put the same stuff into the head. So alternative education is actually doing more harm because they are not challenging any basic fundamental issues of how the child learns. You see? The second phase of my inquiry was looking at how the child learns. This belongs to the biology of life. Other one is conditioning. It's about behaviorism, it's psychology that condition the child with text. So each child believes that they have learned science, this is called science. Something you do, this is called art, all fragmented, compartmentalized, and we all believe in those stories. The pure conditioning, compartmentalization, fragmentation, that's what it is. Now, this is another story, that how does a child learn? It follows a completely different system. I'll tell you how modernity has not even attempted to understand this. We study in biology digestive system, correct? Digestive system, skeletal system, muscular system, neural system, every system we study except cognitive system. Am I right? Why are we not doing this? The moment you study cognitive system, you will clearly understand what is the problem of modern education system. We don't look at the biology of learning. Like digestion. A sensitive body would reject what to eat and what not to eat. It knows. A sensitive body. A desensitized body can be conditioned to eat any junk it will eat. So the mind, you play with the mind. And when a body is intelligent, the mind will obey the body. It will eat the right food. Mind is in sync with the body. When the mind is dominating, greed happens. It's not, body doesn't need greed. Body only eats what it really requires and knows when to stop it, not the mind. Clear? So, exactly like this. Now, if you look at the situation, but even if the mind is playing fool with the body will still try to take the final decision. Because the digestion itself is done by the body, not by the mind. Correct? So if you have a bad food, it will have loose motion or it will vomit. So the body is again, but the problem is that you keep on feeding bad food, then it will erupt into all kinds of diseases. Cancer, stomach cancer, this, that. Because the mind is insisting and the body finally gives up. Body can't, So I actually find the modern situation, modernity, as a fight between the mind and the body, of life and artificial life. Artificial life slowly taking over everything of biology, of life itself. Now, coming back to cognitive system, sense inputs. Sense is what gives you input. Because then what you experience itself is the input that goes in. And then the body or the system reorganizes, what is called as self-organizes. And then what you have is knowledge. This is not rocket science. Just look at how you learned your mother tongue. Correct? There was no attempt to learn.
Yeah.
Of course, now modernity, children are being taught language. But in traditional societies, in non-literate societies, there is no learning there is no teaching at all. So, language gets reorganized or self-organized, and then you begin to speak so spontaneously. Now, this is the proof about our creativity, of our autonomy, of our inner ability to understand things. This fact has been forgotten the moment modern educational system organizes itself on something called content which someone else decides, and then someone else decides where to study, someone else decides who to teach, whom will do the teaching. This is total absurd. Learning cognition can happen only here and now. The senses will function, the world, you are engaging with the world, experience what is happening, you make sense of it, you respond to it, and you live. Even the deepest knowledge comes only from this situation. This is what the Rishis and Munis did. This is what, recent times all the spiritual gurus are doing. Whether it is Ramana Maharshi, whether it is Osho, whether it is Krishnamurti, all the processes of cognition is about being in the world, being alert to the world, you understand? And this is what even top scientists are doing. Topmost, I'm not talking about the mediocres. Topmost like Einstein, Newton, everybody actually are engaging with the secrets of the world in a non-reasoning mode. This is another fallacy that modern education is spreading, that science and mathematics are reason-oriented. They are rational. They are not. They are rational only because we are dealing with what is known. When you are a true inquirer, reasoning cannot function. Einstein have made these statements, that reasoning is basically a slave. Not it is intuition, it is imagination that is the ability of a learner. So, I'm just placing certain fundamental issues of learning. Now, you can also if you look at the modern education in another way, you see that language is the cognitive source. Written text is the cognitive source. Reasoning is the cognitive tool. You know that. That is what is getting promoted. So you use memory to store information, artificial memory. You use reasoning, conscious reasoning, to analyze those things and produce what you think is the knowledge. Correct? I find these two are basically communication tools. Language is to describe the world, not the world itself. Right? So I find when people say that the medium of instruction is English, it's absurd. When you want to understand a thing, understand clay or mud or anything, what is the role of language in that? You have to touch it, you have to feel it. Food. Can any language teach you anything but food? You read it, you experience it. No? So this idea of instruction, of a language as a medium is totally absurd. This is only a communication thing. And you really don't even need, because when you're hungry, when I am hungry, whatever language you are able to find food and eat, no? Right? So, and reasoning. How reasoning comes in this whole scenario is that when you are dealing with what is known, the only way to understand that is through reasoning. And through reasoning, what you are doing, your mind is getting conditioned to deal with what is known. So that is why there is no creativity in modernity. It cannot have. In fact, what they have done is, they have put creativity as something that the mind can keep doing. It's not true. Creativity is our inborn ability. Whenever we are in a situation, and we have always been in a situation of unknown all the time. Spontaneity is the way we engage with things. We observe, we respond, exactly the way that I'm speaking, which word I am thinking and talking.
So, what is creativity means?
That's what I've told.
Uh,
Creativity is an organic biological quality. And see, today the whole context has been misunderstood because of two fundamental reasons. One, the basic reason is that rationality and reasoning has taken over the way we be in the world, the whole world, and it's a construct. No child is ever born with a rational mind. Rationality is, artificially induced in the child by situations of modernity. Primarily because modernity is always dealing with finished products. Knowledge as a finished product and things as finished products. So you will also find modernity has, in the language of modernity, there are more nouns. Whereas in traditional societies, because they are they are in the knowing, there are more verbs, there are more processes. A child is engaging with life in the process of things, not as finished products. Because today, if modern children, educated children, wouldn't know most of the things related to farming, related to cooking, nothing. Because they always, milk packet, where does the milk come from? People wouldn't know. Where does the rice come from? People wouldn't know. Most vegetables can't be differentiated. How does whether some vegetable is on the tree, on the plant, as a small plant, nothing. Am I right? So, we are actually cut off from the principles of life, the processes, the phenomena that is happening in life. And we are no different from those phenomena. The same processes at work. Living, giving birth, death, this is all the phenomena of life. And we are not in touch with that at all. We don't see a small plant growing, dying, or anything about life we don't see. This is the basic issue, that the processes are not awakened in us to engage with the world. We are dealing everything as products, sorted out, compartmentalized, standardized, and that's what we become. So to me, inquiring into education is not about just schools and learning. It's a deep, spiritual crisis of the human being. It has to be understood much more in depth, rather than teaching some children something, that all this is happening. It has to be on what have you become with this education. Primary inquiry is to you, your own mediocrity, your own disinterest in life, just your interest in making money, making this, that's all. Unless we face that, there is no way to even inquire in what is education. We are happy with the mediocrity that we are. That we learn, we say we learned all that, we've forgotten everything. And then, because that you have to earn some money, you have to learn those tricks. And then you become an expert, because then your next income, your higher up, everything will depend on what you are going to learn. That motivates you to learn. Is that right? So what is this? What is the mystery of life that we are, engaging with? This is not education. So we have started a small initiative called Reimagining Schools. This is starting with the assumption that we have no idea about what children are all about, how learning happens.